You notice everything. The change in someone's tone, the pause before they say your name, the way a room feels different, even when nothing obvious has changed. And sometimes the hardest part is not what happens, it is how long it stays inside you. A small comment can follow you for hours. A disappointed look can replay in your mind all night. Even good moments can hit so deeply that they almost hurt. So you start wondering if something is wrong with you. Why do other people move on so fast while you still feel the echo? Why does your heart turn simple moments into something heavy, something you carry longer than you want to? And why does being this emotionally aware make you feel deeply human, but also strangely alone? What you may not realize is that feeling everything deeply is not always a sign of weakness. A lot of the time, it is a sign that your mind is processing more than it can quickly sort. And that difference changes everything. When you feel everything deeply, life is rarely just life. A conversation is not just a conversation. It becomes a puzzle, a memory, a possible rejection, a hidden meaning, a future consequence. Someone says, "I'm fine," and you hear the tension under the sentence. A friend takes longer than usual to reply, and part of you starts building a story. Your boss gives short feedback, and your nervous system acts like something important is at risk. Even when nothing dramatic happens, your inner world becomes crowded. You replay, you analyze, you absorb. And over time, this does something quiet to your identity. You stop seeing yourself as sensitive. You start seeing yourself as difficult, too much, too emotional, too reactive, too affected by things that shouldn't matter. So you try to hide it. You tell yourself not to care, not to overthink, not to make it big. But that rarely works, because the problem is not that you are choosing to feel too much. The problem is that your brain is noticing, tagging, and storing emotional information with unusual intensity. And when that happens often enough, your whole life starts to feel louder than it looks from the outside. Relationships become harder because you pick up what others miss, but you also carry what others forget. Decisions become harder because your mind does not only ask, "What do I want?" It asks, "How will this affect everyone? What if this changes how they see me? What if I regret it later? What if I already missed something important?" Even your self-talk changes. Instead of saying, "That moment was awkward," you say, "Why am I like this?" Instead of saying, "That hurt me," you say, "I shouldn't be so affected." And that is where the pain becomes deeper than the event itself. Because now you are not only feeling life, you are fighting yourself for feeling it. But this pattern did not come from nowhere. In psychology, intense feeling is often connected to deep processing. Some people do not simply react more, they process more layers at once. Their attention is naturally drawn to subtle cues. Their emotional brain responds quickly, and their reflective mind keeps working long after the moment is over. This can happen for different reasons. Sometimes it is temperament. Some nervous systems are simply more sensitive to stimulation. Sometimes it is learning. If you grew up in an environment where moods were unpredictable, your brain may have learned to scan constantly for tone, tension, and danger. Sometimes it is attachment. If closeness once felt unstable, your mind may treat small shifts in connection as highly important. So no, you are not broken. You may be adapted. Your mind may have become extremely skilled at detecting meaning, especially emotional meaning. That skill can make you insightful, compassionate, creative, and unusually aware. But untrained awareness can also become exhaustion. A gift without structure often feels like a burden. And this is where most people misunderstand themselves. They think the goal is to feel less. Usually, the real goal is to process better. Your brain is not only an emotional instrument, it is also a prediction machine. Its job is to notice patterns and protect you before pain fully arrives. If you feel deeply, your brain may be acting like a smoke alarm with very sensitive settings. That does not mean the house is always on fire. It means the alarm detects heat quickly, sometimes before the situation is clear. The amygdala, the part involved in threat detection, can react fast to emotional cues. The insula helps track what is happening inside your body, so you feel changes in tension, heartbeat, and discomfort more vividly. Then your thinking mind steps in and tries to explain what all of it means. That is where the loop begins. Feeling, interpretation. More feeling, more interpretation. A short silence becomes a possible rejection. A tired expression becomes a fear that you did something wrong. A memory becomes evidence. Then your body responds as if the conclusion is already true. A simple way to understand this is to think of your mind as having two jobs happening at once. One part is an antenna. It picks up signals. The other part is a storyteller. It gives those signals meaning. If the antenna is strong, but the storyteller is anxious, harsh, or untrained, you do not just feel more, you suffer more. Because the signal is real, but the meaning attached to it is often unfinished. That is why two people can live through the same moment, yet one shrugs it off, while the other carries it for 3 days. Not because one is stronger, because their systems assign different levels of significance. So what do you do when your inner world is intense, but you do not want it to run your life? You begin by slowing down the meaning-making process. When something hits you hard, do not ask, "Why am I reacting like this?" Ask, "What is my brain protecting right now?" That question changes the tone immediately. It moves you from shame to observation. If a friend seems distant and your chest tightens, pause before creating a story. Maybe your brain is protecting you from abandonment. Maybe it learned long ago that distance could become loss. The reaction makes more sense when you see what it is trying to prevent. And the moment your reaction makes sense, it becomes easier to guide. The second thing is to separate sensation from conclusion. This sounds simple, but it is powerful. Say to yourself, "I feel tension in my body," not "something is wrong." I feel hurt, not "they do not care." This works because the brain calms down when experience becomes specific. Specific language recruits more reflective processing. It gives the prefrontal cortex something clear to work with, instead of letting raw emotion run the whole scene. Imagine getting a short text from someone you love. Your stomach drops. You want to send 3 more messages. Instead, name the actual experience. My chest feels tight. I feel uncertainty. My mind is predicting distance. That small shift creates a gap between feeling and action, and sometimes that gap saves relationships. The third thing is to reduce emotional flooding before you try to understand it. Insight does not work well when your nervous system is overloaded. When you are overwhelmed, do not go straight into analysis. Regulate first. Walk slowly. Wash your face. Sit in silence. Lengthen your exhale. Put your hand on your chest and let your body feel one clear signal of safety. This is not vague self-care. It is nervous system timing. A dysregulated brain is built for survival, not accuracy. It fills gaps quickly and usually with fear. A calmer brain is better at context. So if a hard conversation leaves you spiraling, do not force yourself to solve it at midnight. Let your body come down first. Then return to the meaning. The fourth thing is to give your sensitivity a container. Deep feelers often have strong emotional input, but weak emotional boundaries. Everything gets in, very little gets sorted. So create rituals that help your mind finish what it starts. Write one sentence after a hard day. What happened, what I felt, what I know for sure. That last part matters. What happened is the event. What I felt is the body and emotion. What I know for sure protects you from imagination pretending to be fact. For example, she was quiet in the meeting. I felt dismissed and tense. What I know for sure is that she was quiet. That is not denial. That is cognitive honesty. It stops your mind from building a courtroom out of one expression. The fifth thing is something many sensitive people resist. You need to stop treating every feeling as a command. A feeling is data. Important data, yes, but not always a final answer. This matters because the brain learns from repetition. If every wave of discomfort controls your behavior, your nervous system starts believing discomfort means danger. But when you feel something deeply and still respond with steadiness, the brain updates. It learns, I can feel a lot without collapsing. I can be affected without being controlled. I can have an emotion without obeying it. That is how resilience is built, not by becoming numb, by becoming able to stay present inside intensity. Maybe this is the part no one told you. Feeling deeply is not the problem. Being alone inside your feelings is. When you do not understand your own patterns, every emotion feels like proof. Proof that you are too sensitive. Proof that people affect you too much. Proof that life is harder for you than it should be. But once you understand the mechanism, the whole experience changes shape. You realize your mind is not a broken machine. It is a powerful antenna with a nervous system that needs better pacing, better language, better boundaries, and more honest interpretation. That becomes the model. Antenna and storyteller. You pick up a lot. Then you learn to tell a better story about what you picked up. Not a fake positive story, not a comforting lie, just a truer one, a slower one. A story that leaves room for uncertainty, room for context, room for the fact that not every silence is rejection, not every shift is danger, and not every deep feeling is a warning. Some feelings are simply your system asking to be understood, and maybe that is the quiet shift you needed. You do not need to become colder to survive this world. You do not need to turn into someone who feels less, cares less, or notices less. You may only need to become someone who knows what to do when feeling arrives with full force. Because the deepest people are not the ones who never get overwhelmed. They are the ones who learn how to hold depth without drowning in it. So the next time something small feels huge, do not rush to judge yourself. Pause. There is a difference between being weak and being finely tuned. And sometimes the life you call too much is really a mind that has been listening too hard for too long. When you learn how to listen back, everything becomes a little quieter.